Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's WitchBeezy here, and today I have another speed build for you guys. I guess technically speaking, it's actually a renovation and not really a speed build, but I feel like I made so many changes with this house that it actually could qualify as a speed build. This is another house that's located in Willow Creek, and it's actually the Pancake residence. Bob Pancakes and Eliza Pancakes lives in this house. I think this house was long overdue for a makeover. I feel like it's very outdated, especially because I was as usual, I always put myself in the minds of my Sims, and I was just thinking about how would Eliza decorate her house, and I feel like the house was very outdated. And another thing that I have to do when I'm doing a build is I kind of have to think about the story behind the build, and in my mind I kind of imagine that maybe Eliza, she inherited this house from her grandmother, someone she was very close to. I imagine that her name was Elizabeth and Eliza was named after her, because it doesn't really make sense for Bob and Eliza to have this huge house with all this expensive furniture, because by the time I got all the furniture deleted, I actually ended up with I think almost 100,000 simoleons, which is a really big budget that I had, and I ended up having a little bit extra left over, which is really good, because I've kind of talked about in the past struggling with sticking to a certain budget, and I feel like almost 100,000 is plenty to work with. And I did think that I was going to struggle initially with the budget with this house, because it is a bigger house and it's a lot of space to fill in. But a lot of the furniture that I use newer packs. I used a lot of Dream Home Decorator, and the furniture in the newer packs, it isn't as expensive compared to older packs, and especially base game. The base game furniture is super expensive. And I'll get more so into the story later, but I imagine that Eliza, she inherited this house from her grandmother, and maybe her grandmother passed away and she kept the house as it was while her grandmother was still alive, and maybe she was in the nursing home or something. But as soon as the woman passed away, Eliza, she decided to do a complete renovation of the inside of the house. And this is a really nice lot. The only thing that I didn't like about this lot is the lighting. The lighting kind of made the build look a little bit weird, and I wasn't really sure of the colors that I was using, because I wasn't sure what colors they actually were, because the lighting was making it look a little bit weird. And something you might notice a little bit, well, kind of coming up soon, that I kind of had to flip the house around because it was a little bit better lighting in the backyard compared to the front yard, and I flipped the house back around later on in the video once I was finished working on the front of the house. I think the outside of the house has a completely different feel than the inside of the house. I think the outside of the house is more suburban looking, and I thought initially that's what I was kind of going for with the inside of the house, because but then I was thinking more about Eliza and the type of person that she is, and kind of how I plan on playing with her in the future. And I feel the suburban feel would have been perfect for the inside if I plan on having Bob and Eliza having children and starting a family and everything like that. But I actually don't plan on playing with them in that way. And I know this is about fixing their life, but I don't know. I don't think that that's something that they're currently working on in this current stage of their life. And I kind of struggled a little bit with the roofing of this house. It had a really weird roof at the beginning, and for a moment I kind of thought about just bulldozing the whole house and just starting completely fresh, but I really wanted to just renovate it, because I kind of like doing renovations, because you don't have to worry about building something from scratch. You kind of already have a foundation there. You just have to add upon it. And I could have I feel with renovating, it kind of could have turned into something completely different, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I think one of my favorite things about this build is the backyard with the pool, because I don't really find myself doing a whole lot of houses with pools, and I even sometimes forget that we have pools in the game. I don't know why, but for some reason I don't really have my Sims swim a whole lot. But I kind of imagine Eliza is I don't know, I kind of see her. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Help, where one of the characters, one of the antagonists in the movie, I forgot what her name is, but she's kind of the queen bee of the town. Everyone looks up to her, everyone wants to be her, whatever trends that are in the town, she kind of influences the whole town, and she kind of has the best husband, the best house. And that's kind of how I imagine Eliza being. I could definitely see Eliza being, I don't know if like how the HOA works, but I can see her like being like the president of the HOA and like telling people like what's acceptable and what's not acceptable with their houses. And I just feel like Eliza, she kind of wants to have like the best looking house on in the neighborhood and in the town. Like she really cares about her lawn, her backyard looking a certain way. And I could see like other people wanting to have the opportunity to come to Eliza's house and like have the opportunity to kind of like be in her presence kind of. And I can just like see her like being like a huge influence in like with the other people and how they decorate their houses as well. And on the same kind of token, I feel like Eliza, she really cares about what other people think and what they say about her and how they perceive her. I think her traits are neat, materialistic, and ambitious. And so I feel like she just wants to have like the best of everything. She wants to have the best house, the best furniture, the best life, or I don't know. I feel like she wants people to think that she has the best of everything. And I believe the lore surrounding the Pancake House, it's basically about that like everything isn't what it seems in Bob and Eliza's relationship and marriage. Like it's implied in their biography that they are having like issues within their marriage, and it's also implied that Bob and Eliza they sleep separately because in the original build she kind of like has like this all pink bedroom, and I think the other room that's in the house it's supposed to be Bob's. And you can look at the furniture inside the house and you don't really see a whole lot of Bob's personality. You don't see anything that's related to Bob, except he does have like the workout equipment in his room, but I think is he a lazy sim? I don't even think that's a trait, but it's kind of implied that Bob is lazy and he doesn't have any ambition. So it's like, why does he have this workout equipment if he doesn't have any like drive to work out or any trait that suggests that he's active? And I think a lot of people, I don't know, I see like a lot of like discourse between Bob and Eliza. Like some people are team Eliza and some people are team Bob. Like some people just say that Bob is lazy and he needs to get his life together. And Eliza, she, like some people say that, you know, she's evil and she's selfish and she doesn't really care for Bob. And I feel like maybe before I started this build, because before I do a build, especially a renovation of like a house that people already live in, I like to take a look at the Sims and I really take a look at their house and their personality because as we all know, like the Sims they did give this like story to the Pancake household, but they didn't really like play it out because when you load up the game, it seems like they have a really good relationship. Well, pretty much they have like I think it was most of their love all the way up and then some friendship. And so from looking at their relationship, I don't think that they hate each other. I just feel like I feel like at this current point in time in their life and it's also in their marriage, I feel like there is like it's almost like I feel like maybe when they first got together they had a lot in common. I think Bob, his traits are I think he's gloomy. No, he's yeah, I think he's gloomy, a slob, and a loner. And I don't believe that Eliza is ambitious in terms of her wanting to have her own career and succeeding and getting to the top of that. I feel like she had ambitions in terms of creating like the best life or like the image of the best life as possible. And I feel like at the beginning of the relationship, I think she saw someone like Bob who had dreams of maybe owning his own restaurant one day or succeeding in the chef career. I think it in the original build, or it might not have even been in the original build because like there is like this picture of Bob which I included in the build at some point where he's like, I don't know, he has like his famous red robe on and he's kind of like just sitting there, and in my mind I kind of feel like maybe he had a dream of like becoming one of those like super famous celebrity chefs like Gordon Ramsay, who has like their own line of like cookware and like becoming like being successful in that way. And I feel like that was something that Eliza was drawn to when they were first married. And to be completely honest, I don't think that Bob's traits are like who he actually is. I feel like over time, like as he's like been trying to move towards his goals and his dreams, I feel like maybe he didn't realize how difficult it would be to actually achieve them. And over time, he has just lost sight of himself. And I honestly think that Bob is currently suffering from depression. And I think that's why he had like that workout equipment, is because he's trying to get back to himself. He's trying to put himself together. Like maybe he's kind of feel like he like let himself go in a way, and lost sight of his dreams. And I I don't know. I don't think Eliza is bad for this, but I just don't think that she kind of really understands what Bob is currently going through, because I don't want to say it in a bad way, but I do believe that Eliza, she might be a little bit more self-centered. Like she might be so like her thought process is like mostly focused on looking good to other people, and so she doesn't understand that, like, and like I feel like people like Eliza who are extremely ambitious and have so many like goals and wants for themselves, I feel like they don't really truly understand people who just can't, like who can't like motivate themselves to do better and achieve higher. Like I feel like those people kind of have a like they struggle with understanding those types of people like Bob, who for some reason just can't seem to get themselves together. And I don't believe that Eliza is responsible at all for, getting her husband back on his feet. The only person who can do that for Bob is Bob himself. He's the only one who can, you know, fix himself and sort his like feelings about himself and his life out. But I do believe that Eliza has tried, and in my mind, like because of this renovation, I don't believe like the original furniture is something that Eliza picked out for herself. And for Bob, I feel like, I don't know, like I mentioned before, I feel like she inherited this house when her grandmother passed away. And I don't, like, in my mind, I kind of envision that maybe they didn't plan on staying in this house for long. I feel like Eliza, she is the type of wife that she wanted to support her husband. And I believe that maybe they had intentions of selling this house so that Bob could open his own restaurant one day. But like I mentioned, I feel like Bob kind of just like lost sight of himself in his dreams and his goals. So they decided to just keep the house and renovate it. And I believe, like, especially with this kitchen, I feel like this is Eliza's way of supporting her husband, because like this is a really nice kitchen. I think like I did end up doubling the size. Well, I don't think I doubled it, but I did increase the size of the kitchen, because I feel like she had Bob in mind when she was like renovating this kitchen, because like it's very spacious and there's like a lot of counter space and room. And I talked about before wanting to do more minimalistic like housing, and I don't think this house was like minimalist, but in the kitchen you can definitely tell that I didn't, well, I don't know if you've ever seen any of my other speed builds, but I didn't like clutter it up as much as I normally do my kitchens. And this kitchen, it probably doesn't look like it's like very used, or it's not getting a lot of use out of it, because Bob is in the state that he's in. So he's not, I feel like Bob, she did renovate the kitchen because she thought it would be something that he would want, but he hasn't really been using it. And also with the kitchen, I kind of had it in mind like maybe Bob, he could use like the little streaming drone thing, like maybe if he ever got himself together and he could like stream his cooking or something like that. And I feel like he does have this desire to maybe become like a famous chef in some sort of way. But to be completely honest, I think like when I play with this household, I honestly believe that the only thing that's going to fix their relationship is space. Like I feel like I did keep the separate bedroom with this renovation, so I feel like Bob and Eliza, they currently aren't sleeping in the same room. I was able to get like 3 rooms out of this build. I guess that you could say it's technically 3 bedrooms, but one of the bedrooms I did turn into an office for Eliza, and then there's another room which is it's technically a guest room, but for now it's Bob's room, and then there's Eliza's room. And the reason why Eliza has her own office is because maybe like when she would, well, maybe when her and Bob were planning on one day opening his restaurant, maybe she had this idea that she would be like his manager or something, or his agent or something like that. But when loading up the game, I noticed that Eliza, she didn't have a job, but Bob, he does have a job. I think he's like a dishwasher or something. And I feel like that may be contributing to his depression because maybe he doesn't want to work for somebody else, or maybe he just feels stuck in his current position, like he can't move up. Maybe he started working at this restaurant thinking that he would move up in his career a lot faster than he is, and he kind of understands that he can't like become a chef like completely on his own. He has to have like experience first working in a restaurant before he can move out on his own and create his own thing, which is why I kind of like that I have more packs to play with, because nowadays I don't think that's the case. Like I feel like you could just like start a YouTube channel and like show yourself cooking, and you could have like the opportunity to become a famous chef. And I think that's definitely something I would play with a lot. And I can definitely see myself using the dream, what is it? The Dream Chef. I think I'm mixing up my packs, but the Home Chef Hustle pack for Bob, and I can like see him like using the pizza thing or the waffle maker, and maybe he can like get the food stall and sell waffles, and maybe one day he will eventually own his own restaurant and he can call it the Pancake House because his last name is Pancakes, but instead of selling pancakes they can sell waffles, which I think would be a really cute idea. And I think at the time of me recording this, I think they either updated the game or they talked about updating this in the future, because I think when the Home Chef Hustle pack first came out, you couldn't use the food items that you could make with the pack. I don't think you could add it to the restaurant menu, and I think that's either something that they already updated or they're thinking about updating, where you can add the items that you like, the food items that came with Home Chef Hustle, to a restaurant menu. And I was trying to think about what I could do with Eliza, and because she doesn't have a job, and also Bob and Eliza, they don't have children yet, I decided like she would be like a perfect person to like be a cat person. So I did include the cat tree, and I know that you can download a different version of Bob and Eliza from the gallery where they do have like a toddler son, I think. But in this storyline, I think that they don't currently have children, because I feel like they had this idea that they would work on, Bob's career and helping him reach his goals. And I thought like Eliza would be like perfect for I think, what is it? The interior designer career, because I feel like I mentioned before, I feel like the inside of the house is a completely different feel than you would think it would be. Like looking at the outside of the house, like I feel like the outside of the house is just for appearances and kind of like match the environment, or match like the aesthetic of the town, and the inside is completely different. I feel like Eliza, she completely went above and beyond with redecorating this house, and I feel like I wanted to include like a lot of artwork. I feel like she kind of looked at the interior of her house as a piece of art, and with her like with renovating this house, I feel like it really inspired her and sparked some type of passion within her that she wants to go to other people's houses and design them. And so if she wanted to become like this famous home interior designer, she had to like have a house that looks, good. So I feel like the interior of the house, I feel like she wanted it to be a certain way because it looks good. It looks good aesthetically, and she can like take pictures of it and like show people that she has, taste. She has the ability to decorate her own home and have it look very like aesthetic, and it looks good. So other people will want her to come to their house and redesign their houses. And also the interior designer career is something that I played with a little bit like when it first came out, but I haven't like played it all the way through. And I thought that would be like something fun to do because it's not something that I typically do in like my everyday gameplay. And so I think Eliza, she's found something that she enjoys and she loves doing. and she's been able to use her ambition instead of trying to help Bob succeed in his career because it's currently not going anywhere. She's internalized it and she's been using her ambition for herself and getting herself to gain fame and recognition for her work and succeed in her career. And I feel like she's going to advance very quickly. And Bob, honestly, he might be a little bit triggered by that because he's seeing his wife now achieve her goals, but he's still staying stuck where he's at. And that's honestly why I feel like they need to separate. I don't think that they're going to get a divorce. I just think that they need even more space apart. Even though they currently already sleep in separate bedrooms, I just feel like Bob needs his own space to reconnect with himself and kind of like separate himself from Eliza and let her give her space to thrive and succeed without feeling guilty because he isn't able to do the same for himself. I feel like he definitely wants the best for Eliza. He wants her to be happy. He wants her to succeed and he doesn't want to get in the way of that. I feel like he currently understands that he doesn't have enough love for himself, and I feel like he knows, like I feel like he definitely loves Eliza and Eliza loves him, but Bob, he cannot love Eliza effectively and be a good partner to her because he currently does not feel good and he currently doesn't love himself. And this is why I'm kind of glad that they had some extra money left over because I think in the near future I'm going to build like an actual apartment for Bob to move in. It's going to be an apartment that's still in Willow Creek. I don't see him moving out like far away, but he does need some additional space to kind of get himself back together. And from there, I honestly don't know what's going to happen with Bob and Eliza's relationship. Like they might realize that they like where they currently are in life that they're just not compatible anymore and they're not right for each other. Even if Bob does successfully like get himself back together and achieve his dreams, maybe at that time like they might realize that they need to move on from each other, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I honestly don't see Eliza being a Willow Creek person though. I could definitely see her like wanting to move away to like San Myshuno or San Sequoia, or no, maybe like the world that came with Get Famous. I could definitely see her in like one of those worlds rather than living in Willow Creek. So I could definitely see her like renovating this house and staying here for a little while, but like getting bored of it and like wanting to move somewhere else and renovate that space as well. Like I feel like she sees like her houses as like blank canvases, and like once she's filled up the canvas to her liking, then it's time for her to like move away to something else. And maybe in a way she saw Bob as another blank canvas that she could kind of like cultivate and craft. And I feel like for her, maybe like her marriage and her relationship to Bob, maybe she sees that as like her biggest flop or her biggest failure, and I feel like that kind of like hurts her. And this is why I don't really understand people who say that The Sims is boring. I feel like the only reason why they would think that is because they don't have the imagination that I do, because I completely came up with this whole story like at the top of my head from just like looking at them. And I think that's another reason why it's so fun to play with Sims that are already made and already have like their own backstory, especially considering that, you know, the Sims team, they did make this story, but they didn't actually like play it through, because it is kind of weird that Bob and Eliza, they actually have a pretty decent relationship, but they have like this kind of tragic story. And I think it's like really fun to play with Sims who are already created and kind of like play through that story for them, because their story wasn't like fully developed by the Sims team. And also, we've kind of gotten like more than halfway through the speed build, and I feel like I've barely talked about the build itself. And I honestly don't feel the need to like talk about the build itself, because like I don't know, I don't really like a whole lot of voiceovers where it's like saying I got this piece of item or furniture from this pack. I don't know, I like people talking about like the story about the build itself rather than like the individual items that were used in the build, because honestly I don't even know, like I mean, like I know there's like an icon, but I don't think about like the icon when I'm doing the build. I just like select items that I like or think look good in the space. And I honestly don't know how to describe the interior of this space at all, because I feel like it's kind of like a mixed match. Like I don't know if it's like, I feel it would be considered art deco, and like there's also something about like the space where it feels modern in some spaces. Like the kitchen I would definitely describe as like more modern, but like the other spaces like the living room and the dining room, like there's something modern about it, but there's also something that's like kind of retro about it as well. But I definitely wanted the space to feel like very luxurious, because Eliza, she is materialistic, and I feel like she likes to have nicer things. Like she likes to have like expensive items in her house, even though I don't think I used a whole lot of expensive items in the furniture. But maybe she's like the type of sim who is maybe like a little bit more frugal, like because she is materialistic, like maybe she likes to hold on to her money. So maybe she's like the type of person where she likes to have things that look expensive, but she doesn't really want to spend a whole lot of money on it. And it's been quite a while since I did a house that was this big. Like I don't know, this house is definitely, it's not the biggest house in the game, but it's like big for me because I feel like lately I've been doing like more apartments and like smaller houses, or like more realistic living situation houses. And this is like a pretty big house. Like there's 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and I think like a guest bathroom downstairs, and there's also like a dining room and a living room and like the outside area. And I feel like this house, it kind of like took me a while to do because there was so much space to fill up. And that was definitely something that I struggled with quite a bit, because I did want the house to look lived in, but I don't think that Eliza is like a minimalist, because I think that she likes to have things. Like she's materialistic, so she likes to have things, but I don't think she likes to have her house look super cluttered. I feel like her office is like the most like least aesthetic room in the house, because I don't know, I feel like maybe that room can be a little bit more messier because she has like all of her work equipment and like all of her design stuff in there. And I feel like her office is probably the room where she feels the most like herself, and she feels like the most comfortable in there. And you would think it would be her bedroom, but I honestly think it's her office, because I feel like her bedroom has to be aesthetic because she is an interior designer, and like a bedroom is like a super like a room that has to be like aesthetic for like picture wise, so you can like show people that I can do bedroom designs. And I think like I definitely know that this is not a limited pack build. I think I used a lot of different packs in this build, but I think like the ones that I used the most that I can think at the top of my head was Dream Home Decorator, and I think I used a lot of high school years, maybe not as much high school years as I can think, but I also used the newest expansion pack, which was the For Rent pack. I've been using that pack in a lot of my builds lately because I like a lot of the items in it, and it really reminds me of like a lot of the items in that pack. It reminds me of the Sims 2 furniture. It like reminds me of like maybe like 2000s style of furniture. And then there were like little items from like different packs here and there. Like I honestly I like the build kits, and they really contribute a lot to my builds, especially the everyday clutter kit. And with this pack, I think I also use a lot of the Modern Lux kit and also the Book Nook kit. That's kind of weird to say, but I use a lot of the kits for this build. And I know like not maybe like everyone has all of the kits, but I honestly think that some of them, especially the build kits, are definitely worth buying. Unless like maybe if you're a console player, they're worth buying, but if you have a PC and you're able to download CC, then I would probably say that maybe kits aren't worth buying, and maybe you can like get a lot of the same clutter items for free by downloading CC into your game. But I honestly understand that not everyone wants to download CC, and there are some people who just play with the game as it comes. And I think I'm kind of getting to that point also. Like I know I talked about before, like getting back into my mod and CC era, where I've been having a lot of fun playing with mods and CC. But I think I'm kind of like going back to the opposite end, where I'm kind of like getting more into like vanilla gaming and like just finding ways to have fun with playing with the game as it comes. And I also want to point out like these paintings in this guest room, which is technically Bob's room. Like I thought it was really interesting to use those paintings because they kind of look like abstract paintings of Bob and Eliza. Like, you know, you can't really see the figures, but it kind of looks like a person. Like, if you need to, like, go back and like pause and let me know what you think. But with this guest room, I was trying to find ways on how I can make it seem like this is Bob's space for now, because I feel like he doesn't really have a specific space. And I honestly don't really know much about him because, like I said, his traits, I don't think that they're actually who he is. I don't believe that he's a slob. I don't believe that he's actually a loner. And I don't believe that he's actually gloomy. I just believe that this is just where he is in his life right now. And so with his room, like I included like these little cookbook things that kind of like they're kind of under the desk, like maybe he's kind of packed them away, because it's kind of like how, like, I think everyone can kind of relate to getting to a point where they lose touch with things that make them themselves. Like they lose touch with their hobbies, they lose touch with their passions, as they're kind of going through this phase where they're trying to figure themselves out and figure out their life and where they are currently. And with the design of the home, I don't believe that Eliza is trying to push Bob out or like push out his like personality from the home. Like I don't think she was like being intentional in that way when she was decorating the house. Like I just think that when she was renovating the house, she was really thinking about what really looked good for the space and what looked aesthetically pleasing. And I feel like maybe some of Bob's items don't really fit her aesthetic, so that's why he has to like put it in his own space, and he just has like the small space, which I think is why it'll be really interesting to kind of like have them get to a point in their marriage where they separate and they're living separately, and Bob can like rediscover himself, and you'll be able to like see his true personality when I like get him his own apartment and decorate it in his own personal style. I feel like currently maybe at this time he doesn't have a style, but maybe that's something that he'll discover in the future. I think another thing that I had in mind when I was renovating the house is the fact that they don't have children, because I feel like the way that people decorate their house, like with people who like couples who have children and people who don't have children, like there's like a different mindset when you're decorating your house. Like I feel like, I mean, like I know some people do have like aesthetics in mind when they're like decorating the house when they have children, but a lot of the times like you don't really think about the aesthetic too much. You just think about like the practicality of it and also the safety of it. Like, is this a safe space for children? Is this a piece of furniture that could be potentially like knocked over by young children? Is this something that's going to get messed up? And like I think especially with Eliza's room, she has like a lot of white furniture. I don't think this is something that someone who has children or a child would typically have in their house, because children have a tendency of like just having their hands be dirty all the time, and I feel like white furniture isn't something that you would want, because it would most likely get messed up, not unless you have like the money to like replace the furniture all the time or get it professionally clean. Like I feel like having like all white furniture in a room isn't something that's very practical when you have children. And even if like things work out with Bob and Eliza, I don't think, like I don't see them having children. I don't see Eliza being the type of sim who desires to be a mom. I think she's like perfectly okay with just having a cat. And I think that's something that's also kind of would be kind of fun to play with, is having a couple that kind of just is okay with being a couple and not really interested in being like parents. Like I don't know, I feel like especially in our society, like we see like that type of representation all the time, where like people, you know, they fall in love, they get married, and then the natural course of things is that they have children. And I feel like even if Bob and Eliza eventually like work things out, it might be interesting to play with that aspect of them like being okay with not having children and being perfectly okay with just like living their lives and following their dreams and their goals and ambitions, and being okay with just not having children. Like they don't feel any type of desire to have children, and I think that would be something that's really fun to play out in the game. It's not something that I usually do in my typical gameplay. Like I usually go like the, you know, the regular route of like, you know, having my sim meet a sim and like eventually like getting married and having children, or having children and then getting married. I usually play that type of gameplay when I'm playing The Sims, and I think it'll be really fun to like do it completely differently. And I think it'll also be fun to like kind of see where their relationship goes, because with my Sims I typically have my sim meet a person and then they kind of like just stay together all the time. And I think like playing with this dynamic where like there is some type of separation, and maybe there's the opportunity that they get back together, or maybe there's the opportunity that they don't, and then maybe they find other people. And I think that'll be something that's really fun to play with. And I think it's because, like, I don't know, it's something about like the Sims game, like you feel like you have to hurry up and rush. And lately I've been playing with aging off, or playing on long lifespan, because I feel like you're able to have more time to like create more complex stories for your Sims. And when I was doing the bathroom for this build, I did have a question come up in my mind, and I thought, like, I didn't know where else to ask this question, and I thought I would ask it in this video, because in this build, like the two bathrooms upstairs, I included a toilet with a bidet, because I don't know, I feel like having a bidet is like bougie, and I feel like Eliza, she is like a bougie sim. I don't want to say that it's like bougie, because I don't know, because I feel like maybe it's considered bougie in America, because not everybody in America has those type of toilets. They're more common in other countries, but I thought it would be weird to include that kind of toilet in the downstairs bathroom where the guests will use the bathroom, because I don't know how it is in other countries, but is it like typical for like everyone to use the bidet? Like, even if you have like guests come over, is it like acceptable for them to like wash their buttholes with your bidet? Like, is that, I don't know, even know how to like ask the question, like, but I don't know, I feel like it would be kind of weird for someone to come over to my house, especially if it's like just a friend or an acquaintance. Like, I could see if it's like a family member who came to my house, like, I think it would be okay and acceptable, but I don't know, like, how acceptable it would be to have like a bidet. And like, I don't know how it feel like if a guest came over to my house and they used my bidet. Like, I don't know how I feel about that, but let me know like if other people are more familiar with like how things work in like countries where they're more like normalized. I would be interested in knowing. Another thing that I would kind of like to know while I'm asking questions is, if you have a PC where it's on your desk, like, how do you sit at your desk and play your game without your neck and shoulders hurting you? Because I recently got a PC for my birthday. Like, before, I was just playing with my gaming laptop, and it's quite amazing how I was even able to play with my laptop for so long, because I didn't realize how small like the items were in my game until like I got the PC, and then I went to go sit down at my laptop because my neck and shoulders were hurting from sitting at my desk, and I realized how small like the items and build and buy were. And I honestly don't know how I was able to play in that way, because I literally cannot see, like, even with my glasses, like, I still had like really bad eyesight. But let me know, like, what do you guys do to like prevent like your neck and shoulders from hurting from like sitting at your desk for like hours at a time? But we are approaching like the end of the speed build. I think by the time that I upload this video, I think it should be posted on the gallery. To be honest, I haven't play tested it all the way. Like, I don't know if your Sims can get to everything, but I did play with it quite a bit. The only thing that I'm not sure about is like the shower in Bob's bathroom. I'm not sure if that is usable, but I'm pretty sure everything else is. But I'm about to end this voiceover here. Stick around to the very end, because I'll be including some pictures of the finished build at the very end. But if you've made it to this point in this speed build, then I appreciate you so much for watching and being here with me today. And if you haven't done so, I'd recommend that you subscribe, because I have more speed builds coming. I also do Let's Plays every now and then. But again, I appreciate you so much for being here watching me, and I hope we can play again another time.